Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Cantina MX Football Podcast. We are on episode 299. We're going to recap the weekend. And we're also going to be talking a little bit about the MLS Liga MX All-Star match happening on Wednesday. And some more transfer rumors as we get closer to the September cutoff. But before I go any further, let me introduce Joel. Joel, how we doing?
I'm really good. Hi, man. This was a good week, not just for football, but for, football news. So plenty to talk about.
Absolutely. We did have two matches over the week since our last episode. Starting with the big elephant in the room with Chivas at home. We knew it wasn't going to be easy, especially just the output that we've seen from the team since the beginning of the season. They ended up getting embarrassed at home 3-0 to León, and León had a man down. So kind of salt in an open wound. Similar to the game against Monterrey on Saturday as well. Chivas had the advantage for almost 30 minutes and weren't able to score. But we'll talk about the León game first. Yeah, it was just brutal, man. It was one of those matches that Chivas actually started off well. They were playing really well. It looked like they were going to score, and of course, Cota having an amazing match. León take the score early, 1-0, 35th minute. And then in the second half, it was just all León dominating, and Vucetich made some suspicious substitutions, took out the engine of the team with, Alexis Vega, and, tried to do some experimentation. But in the end, they scored another goal, and then just right at the end, 98th minute, they score a third goal. And, it was just a very embarrassing match.
Yeah, it had the fans, the Chia hermanos, they were raging. They're all full on fuera Buse.
That's right.
And even fuera Peláez. And there's a big campaign going on. And I still think it's exaggerated. And it sucks, the result, of course. But I think there's what Chivas is doing. It's like the project, you could say, with Peláez, is more of a long term. And so it's going to take a while before we see any results. And Peláez did talk about this because he finally gave a press conference, to address some of these issues. And he mentioned it, and he's mentioned it before. And it's something I talk about for fans, like what's become the culture, the football culture for us, Mexico fans, with the short season, where we've become very impatient, and you want quick results, or else it's not worth it.
Instant gratification.
We forget that it's regular season would be 1 year, one campeonato, but it's split in two, and so we forget some of these things, and just how more difficult it's become for Chivas, because the other teams can just bring in 4 or 5 extranjeros and then be stronger than the previous season. Chivas just doesn't have that luxury, and so that puts them on a tough spot.
Yeah, but, we knew this going into the season. I mean, the second we had that press conference and they had said, look, we're going to keep Vucetich. We're not going to do what every other, team in Mexico does, and that's fire the coach. We're going to keep him on for another year. And, as soon as, Peláez said that, I just knew that, I just didn't have much hopes for this season, to be honest. And, to be fair, in his defense, the first couple matches of the season, he had to play them without a lot of players because of the Olympic squad and because of the Gold Cup. So we give him the benefit of the doubt there. And then we see these players start to reincorporate into the team around the match week 4, and it's just been very frustrating to watch this team, especially on that Wednesday game. I was watching the YouTube channel for Chivas because they have people actually in the palcos and they're calling the game, through Chivas TV. And you just saw it all on their faces, man. They were all just devastated and just they just look like, this is like just unbearable to watch. And then there was a guy on the in the stands, and he was going around every, couple minutes interviewing the fans, and everybody was just so upset. And then, like you mentioned, towards the end of the match, they're just saying "fuera Buse, fuera Buse, fuera Buse," and it's just like, look, he's not going to go anywhere because we had the opportunity to get rid of him, during the offseason. So at this point, we just have to sit down on the Titanic and just go down with the ship because they're not going to fire him. I know they're talking about Jimmy Lozano and Turco Mohamed, but I think that's all smoke, bro. I don't think he's going to get fired.
Yeah, it's those are campaigns that are from like the promoters and player agents, and they've always done that. They've always done stuff like that to try to place their people in, and I feel it's been hurting Chivas because there has been like an aggressive push to sort of like take hold of Chivas as far as like one of the teams where they're gonna put their players, and it's been one of my well, for me, I believe that's one of the big reasons that Tena was let go. Remember early on he got linked to that one promoter whose name now skips my mind. God damn it. But this guy is promoter that's been in Mex for a long time, and they won't just play the coach but also players, and that's where the majority of the money is in Mexico with the whole buy sell trade. And I gotta I'm gonna ask Google, but and if we remember back when Palencia was at the with the team, he was when he was like a GM, and then they brought in what was this guy? Was it Puente Jr.? They sort of had two GMs, and that was like one of the big fights as well for like who brings in players. And that was also like you could read even when La Volpe was there, and that was another big thing right before the Podologa scandal and all of that, because he had his own people. And I think that's been hurting Chivas too when you see the promoters trying to fight to see who's gonna just to put their flag in there, plant their flag in Chivas, as far as like it's one of the teams that they control as well, where they have a big say. And I think, and we mentioned this before too with Pelaez when he was at Cruz Azul. Big reason that's kind of why he got booted. When the he had cut off their old promoter and he was bringing in other players, and when that other dude came in, again I'm forgetting names. I might think I'm losing, getting early signs of Alzheimer. But remember, the dude comes in and they boot Pelias out, and as soon as they did that, they started bringing in more players, and that's a big business. It's a lot of money there. So I
Yeah.
do think I do feel that's something that's been hurting Chivas, where they just haven't been able to get it. Not only haven't they been able to buy players, but even sell them. No, nobody would buy from them. I believe they put Beltran on the market, big name, and with no offers. Really, I keep hearing all these great things, and no team even sent like
I think
try to lowball them at least.
in the end they intervened and said that he was going to stay with the team.
But even I mean, did we even hear like so and so is interested?
I think
Or because
Pachuca was interested, but yeah.
but Yeah, and see, and that's like same with trophies. Like no one even wanted to touch him, and I do think that's part of it. I do think that's just the business of the game. I don't think it's being done to sink Chivas. Is more sort of like to put pressure on them, and I do feel that's one of the ways to do it. We could I don't know if you guys remember, but this was from back when Higuera was controlling the club, and he had good ties with Grupo Pachuca, and that's where they had been bringing in all the players, Cota, Gallito, Pizarro, all the guys, everyone coming from Grupo Pachuca, Pachuca or León, and this was around the time that the clubs were gonna vote for the TV rights because Televisa was about to lose them, and
Hmm.
and you remember that? And they were gonna vote at that time. Higuera Chivas was gonna vote along with Grupo Pachuca, another group, and I forgot. I think ESPN. I forgot which, or Fox, some other, but it was gonna. Televisa was no longer gonna have that control, and then they ended up doing that expo. They Televisa started doing those like news segments on how Pachuca benefits from the state of Pachuca, how they get all these tax
Oh, interesting.
breaks, and it's all on the expense. Chivas was also getting sued by Profeco, which is the consumer, for faulty Chivas TV. It's, it's this battle
Wow.
that's going on, and Chivas ended up voting for, in favor of Televisa, and that's sort of around the time when all them deals dried up, and now they couldn't get any players. So Chivas went with, Televisa. They did get Oribe, but
Huh.
they went with them, and then Televisa ended up having control of the selección for another, I think it's 8 years. And then after 8 years, and I think they might finally lose it, just because I think at this point they probably won't have as much. We've been seeing sort of their power waning. As Televisa, people like to think everything always goes their favor, but we saw last season how they got taken away 3 points for having a player on the bench
Hmm.
whose name I forget again. But what was it? A Brazilian guy? Who was it?
I don't remember.
You remember? But that's how Atlas from benefiting from those 3 points. It was 3 points and a three plus three goals.
Yeah. Last year. Yeah, season.
Yeah, and see that's something that wouldn't have happened, a few years back. Like it just was unheard of. And we used as an example Tigres, who actually played with an eligible player 3 games, and they were allowed to replay the games. This one they didn't even. I don't think America even protested. I guess they were like, whatever, sort of like we'll catch you on the rebound or something. So I do feel there's been some power struggles going on, and I do think that some of the stuff that's been hurting the rebaño. Okay, I'm gonna take off my aluminum hat now. Back to you, Jaime.
Well, it's like, yeah, the short season gives everybody this like weird sense of entitlement that if things aren't starting off well, it's time to kind of get rid of somebody. And Querétaro are the first team to fire their coach. El Piti Altamirano has been fired, relieved of his duties. So I mean, it only took
and
what, seven matches or six matches. So I mean,
and
it's
yeah,
crazy.
and this goes back to something Hugo was saying, how he said that Mexican coaches don't get as much, of a chance as foreigners. And a PT Mexican coach, you haven't heard much about him. Guess he's getting a start, and it's big reason why I was for Gonzo not taking the Pumas job. I don't think they would have hold on to him as much as they've been holding on to Liliani. Um, and I don't know if we mentioned it, but he's in charge of the
Atlanta.
of Atlanta FC. So he's a coach now, and he's gonna. I'm guessing he'll probably get the full season, with Atlanta. But
It'd be funny if for his first action he's gonna get rid of Jurgen Damm and Google Torres. He's like, get these bums out of my team.
dang, I don't know. I don't know. I don't. But that's sort of the stuff that just worth mentioning because we want to see more coaches, you know, and I do feel that ultimately they're gonna have to seek their fortunes abroad. I think just because I don't think they're gonna have much luck. Very few are gonna have that ability to stay in Mex. You sort of have to be linked. Again, going back to promoters, you sort of have to have the right promoters. That's why we keep seeing some like Thomas Boy and whatnot. You know, they keep getting jobs.
Absolutely. So we did have some uh accomplishments over the last double header. Pumas finally got their first win of the season. I wish Chiquis was here. They beat Puebla 2-0, so
Yeah,
somewhat
Puebla,
bouncing
man.
back.
Puebla now sort of going down. They had been, one of the surprise teams, and they had been on a high, but now they seem to
Well,
be.
they got rid of Ormeño, so
Yeah, one of their goleadores. Not sure if they got rid of any other players, but that's the thing again. Can't blame them too much because that's what happens when and we said it here even with Chivas. As soon as you have good players and they start becoming seleccionados, and all of a sudden now they could demand higher wages, and it just becomes harder to keep some of these. They could demand better salaries, better contracts, and so big reason why these teams end up having to sell the players.
yeah,
They won't be able to afford the squad, and then you give one of those players a contract, then you have to give the other ones because they're gonna feel like they deserve it too.
they lost him and Chava Reyes. He went to America, so I mean those were two big pieces to that success in Puebla. So yeah, I mean right now there's 4 teams with no victories. Puebla's one of them. Querétaro, who just fired their coach. Juarez, oh boy, what's going on over there with Tuca Ferretti and Tijuana?
And well, I think what with Tuca, we will, I wouldn't sound the lights. They're just getting started, so let's see how it goes. Again, it's a long term project they have with the Tigres, the former Tigre president, and he brought in the Toucan. I think I think they're gonna give. He has his streak. I don't think he's gonna lose it. He has his never been fired
I don't
Guinness
know,
record of
man.
Liga MX.
I don't think he's ever
But
coached a
as he
shitty
brought
team
him, dude.
before.
Um,
Cause
yeah, true. But I mean,
he was at Pumas, then he coached Chivas, Tigres, Toluca, Morelia. It's like he hasn't really coached a team that's like basically relegation bound. If we did have Descenso, this would be one of those teams that's, you know, um, on the brink of getting sent back down to the second division. So, this is a different challenge for him. And he's a lot older too.
yeah, yeah. But I think like the dude that brought him, he had that in mind. Like he knows this stuff. So I think
He's getting his win percentage screwed over, man. He's got no wins. he's got
he's got a 10-year though. He's got that big.
like you're talking about one
His
of the best coaches, in Liga MX.
Oh yeah, the past 10 years,
And
even before that, but the past 10 years were pretty consistent. The way
I mean his win
just
percentage
Tigres,
was he was winning almost every other game, he's at 42%. Um But now with Juarez, he's at 0, so it's gonna screw up his. It's like when you play Call of
Uh,
Duty, you don't want your kill to death ratio to get too bad, or else
I,
you lose
I
your
don't think
rank.
he cares. Yeah, I don't think he cares though, man. He has a bunch of trophies in his trophy cabinet back at home, including the one with Chivas, which is like kind of like when you get the gold. You know what? When you level up the weapon and you could get the gold color.
Yeah. Winning a title at
That's,
Chivas is
that's
just
the,
worth more. It's like the ultimate unlock.
yeah, he unlocked that achievement. So I mean, yeah, I don't think he cares, man. He already did everything. I really do believe he's doing this as a favor for the
Yeah.
guy
He should have just
and
retired, man.
yeah, but if you had this dude that was, because they hooked him up, that
Like
job we talked about, just
he
that being
took
having
Tigres to
just
the
driving
Club World Cup final, man. The second best
and
team in the
Libertadores
world, technically.
and
That's where
and
you
Libertadores.
that's where you do. You just retire after that match, man. After Bayern Munich,
He
that's
he
it.
should have. I agree with you. He should have left there, exit through the front door. But I guess, man, he was just stubborn because the writing was on the wall already. A lot of the old card was gone. This new directiva came in. But I think, he came up big time with the old card. We see him driving around in a Ferrari and whatnot. Um,
My theory is like, they just don't know what to do after they retire. They get bored. So it's like, if I retire, then who am I? What am I gonna do? I just can't picture Tuca like sitting at a beach relaxing. I just can't. It's not in his temperament. He has to be yelling at somebody. He has to be coaching somebody.
well, I mean, I do think someone like him, and I thought this was going to happen before at Tigres, but I didn't know that the whole directiva had been replaced or a lot of the key positions. And I thought he was going to stay at some type of consulting. Like they give you some type of like a vice president of sporting or something like that,
Yeah.
some fancy title. But I guess they were like, nah, these guys were like, they just knew he was too influential. And they're like, we don't, we need to leave our mark or else we're just going to be following this dude for another 10 years. And so I understand that. And I guess if that team ever starts sucking, they could bring him in that type of role.
Yeah. Well, Tigres, man, they are scoring a lot of goals. They're in third place right now, and they have one of the best offenses. So Piojo's doing a great job.
And see, it looked for a while, it looked shaky. And again, I'm saying if he ends up doing good, this is like one of the dream jobs. We'll see Piojo in his Ferrari pretty soon too.
You basically got a blank checkbook over there in Tigres.
Yeah, I mean his wages and prize money and whatnot. It was like, I wanted him to go abroad, but I mean I don't blame him taking that Tigres, that big cushy Tigres job, man. That's almost like working from home, and you don't have to you don't have to do much.
Absolutely. One last thing about Chivas that I just want to bring up before we move on. They haven't scored since match week 3, and that was against Juarez. They tied 2-2. So scoreless against Santos, scoreless against Leon, and scoreless against Rayados. It's not going to get any
Yes,
easier. They do play
I'm not
Necaxa and then Puma. So
I'm not concerned, Jaime. I'm not concerned, because Santos was an away game, and it was to take that point from Santos on the road. I think it was a really good result. I know people are probably saying, well, "What are you talking about?" Because they see Chivas as being high and mighty, but they're not. Historically, yes, but the history is not the one on the field. Santos has been just consistently, they're one of the best teams. as far as winning the league and all that. They're up there, man. I think they're top three if I'm not mistaken. But they've been one of the better teams as far as like winning league titles. I think they win it every 4 years or so. That's been their like MO for the past 10 years or some maybe longer. I, I think since Iraragorri took over, but they've had Chivas number for a long time, and so to take a point from them, I take it. I'll take it, and then Leon again. This is a team that's been one of the best teams for the past, I don't know, 3 4 years. They've been very consistent, very good, and yeah, it sucks to lose. That not being able to score at home though, I'll go back to that. And then Monterrey, I think they're one of the favorites to win the league, and to take a point from them, especially after getting your ass handed to you, it's no easy task. So I'm not too concerned. I'm more concerned with not being able to win at home because I think it's been all defeats, right, Jaime? If I'm not mistaken, I think all games at home have been losses.
Let's see. They had their first game of the season was against Atleti at home, and they lost. Yep. Then they go on the road and beat Puebla, and then they tied Juarez at home. So yeah, they have failed to win at home. Yep.
Yeah, not good, not good. That's what you know.
And you know
Just
what? They did us a favor this weekend because the game was only available on ESPN Plus and ESPN Deportes, which I don't even have, and I was gonna spend $7 to watch this, this disaster. So I didn't watch the game, and yeah, I'm glad I didn't. They did everybody a favor. you know?
yeah, and that's another thing hurting Chivas that they're not available on Open TV.
Well, I guess Monterrey, I think they have a contract with Fox Sports,
Oh, my bad. That was
but
the away game.
I don't know why the game happened to be on ESPN this weekend. I don't know what's going on there. I thought that was like really random, but
Well, I
go
mean,
figure.
because is the contract with Fox in Mexico, and then there's the contract for games in the U.S.
Oh,
So I think that's what we're looking at.
trying to see America. I mean, we have to talk about them. They're the best team in the league right now. First place. They've won
Yes,
5
and another.
games and they've drawn 16 points.
Yeah, the coach, he's 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 showing to be really good. What is it, Solari? And hopefully the team learned from their escapade last season, and they're gonna put the partying on hold. But the big news coming from Ame was that as a guy that scored, was he Ecuadorian?
What are you talking about?
He had been They had sidelined him because
Ibarra.
he beat on his wife or something like that. Remember there was a big scandal that he was like, was there even a video? I think he was like, "I'll kill you," something
Uh,
like that. But I
domestic
think there was a
violence.
video of it. Yeah, but I think there was like a video, like someone was like streaming it or something. They had like a
Really?
TikTok about it. Yeah, he's making all these threads, and if I'm mistaken with my old mind, uh, correct me in the comments. But he did get sidelined for that, and then he came back. It all got cleared up, and there's been a big controversy because one of the Mex newspapers, I think it's Cancha, they did like a portada that said "Golpe de autoridad" or something
Oh
like that,
god.
and they had him on the cover, and they're taking it as in
Just classy
like a,
headlines.
and it's like they probably weren't even thinking of that, but I mean,
Nah, come on,
who
dude.
knows? You do think so?
That's intentional, bro. That was
Because
super
I've heard that before. I've heard that term before. I mean, I guess with him being on the cover,
They
but
should
if he
have
scored,
photoshopped a wife beater on him. one of one of those tank tops. Put him on the cover. But
damn,
yeah, America
they're gonna
in
they
flying
they're
form.
gonna. I may if they return this guy, they're gonna have to return that kid. I don't know if you remember, they had one of their juveniles. There was that song that was kind of popular
Oh,
with
they're
the
making fun of the
women's
women, right?
movement, the women movement, like
Yeah,
la culpa no era mía, era tuya, or something like
yeah,
that. It was like a little catchy chant,
yeah.
and they recorded him singing that song in the locker room,
That's right.
and they they got rid of that dude. And I was like, well, if you're gonna let the wife beat her back, this dude was just singing, man. He was just
Yeah. It was actually a pretty boring weekend. You know, Tigres started off things with a 3-0 victory over Mazatlan, but Saturday was just pitiful. Atlas and Toluca, no goals, 0-0. Atletico San Luis and Cruz Azul, 0-0. And the Leon Santos game, both goals were off a PK. So, you know, I feel bad for anyone that, had the Sabatina, they're like, oh, I'm going to do nothing but watch, Liga MX all Saturday.
oh man, probably ended up
And then
drunk.
Chivas, Monterrey, also 0-0. There was only 2 goals in four matches, man.
That is pretty bad. But I mean, doble jornadas are always tough, you know.
Yeah.
The big doble jornada has always been difficult task, and you don't want to. Teams are more cautious because you don't want to end up 6 points down so quick, and then getting the PT Altamirano treatment. So can't really blame the coaches for being like, "F that, man. I'm gonna pack it in."
Going to the comments really quickly. Ricardo, welcome. Gustavo, welcome. Bill, welcome. Ricardo said something about the coach mentality in Mexico that's worse than the player, that they don't want to get out of their comfort zone. He said that Chelis had an offer from Real Oviedo, but he declined because they didn't pay him enough. I'm assuming that was a what, second division team? Sounds like a second division team.
Yeah, it probably was. No, they've been back and forth, but I agree with you to an extent. But then we also have to keep in mind, like, we don't know what these guys' economic situation is back home. We don't know how if they owe money or how much they have to pay, or they have their kids in school, or they're trying to put their kids through college.
Ah,
So we have to keep some of that stuff in mind too, where it's like, once you have that, um, just a lot of these guys end up taking care of their whole family, not just their family, but like their immediate family too. The abuela and
but
all
still,
that
I
stuff.
mean, if you get an offer to go coach in Spain, man, like you take it. I mean, he was
Yeah, but
coaching.
I'm
He was
saying
coaching
you're thinking
Las
as a
Vegas and stuff. Like you're not willing to go to
yeah, and
Spain.
imagine how much less they must have offered him. He was Vegas. He was probably hitting the trying to get a jackpot. Just hit the slots after the match. Uh, No, but yeah, some of these teams in Europe will pay you almost peanuts, and I'm sure that's what they're paying Nacho. You know,
He's like,
but he's
I
got
could be a color commentator on ESPN Deportes and get paid to just
no. He probably
talk
he
about.
probably has good money because I mean, again, a lot of players when they're players they just don't manage their money right, and they end up once they retire, it's sort of like they could go broke and whatnot. And there's a lot of stories like that. It's just pretty sad, when you hear about how these players that were great, how they ended up like on the street, sort of like Garrincha would like, because he was very like poor and like no schooling, and he would just, he'll put his money under his mattress, but
Oh,
like he's sort of like
really?
yeah, yeah. He when he died, he was like in a bad situation. One of the heroes of the Maracanazo, some Uruguayo. I don't know if it was Gigia. I can't remember the name. But this dude, he ended up like a bomb. He was like a bomb. They found him, and he was already
What?
pretty old, like 70,
No
living in the
way.
street. And I'm thinking, dude, Uruguay, what's going on, man? No one was looking out after their heroes. This guy should have like,
I
he
mean,
shouldn't have to pay for anything. He should just have a free pass, a free one of those fast track pass for all of Uruguay.
it's like I want a World Cup,
They,
bro. Like I get to get
he
into
did.
everything.
Their last World Cup they ever won, but it's a huge one, and yeah, you hear some of these stories and it's pretty sad. So sometimes we have to keep that in mind as far as some of the coaches where it's like maybe when they were, you know, they probably went a bit extreme and bought too big of a house or too many cars now, and now they're just like need to pay all that money off.
Ricardo's grilling you, saying that these coaches don't want to sacrifice anything like the coaches from South America, and it's a mediocre mentality.
Well, see, that's the other thing because the saying is the more money you make, the more you spend. And so in South America, a lot of these guys, they don't get a lot of money. So they're a bit more, you could say, humble in the sort of stuff that like their lifestyle and whatnot. So they're that's a big reason too why they seek their fortunes abroad. And then so it's even with the players, they don't get a lot of things. Or so I do feel where a lot of those guys
I I,
um
I just
they
feel
don't they
like
don't go as crazy.
yeah. I mean, it's like when you have a job that's 100% commission, you're not guaranteed a paycheck, so you got to go out there and bust your balls. I feel like if he was to take that gamble, yeah, you're going to get paid less, but I mean, why not suffer a little bit to go a lot further ahead? But I understand
I
that
should say the age counts too, like how old are you when that opportunity came.
yeah.
So and then where are they at financially? So a lot of these dudes, they're not. We don't hear about them. Because there's hundreds of players. We might hear a couple that retired, but what about all these other guys? Some of them end up at the used car lot, or maybe they bought like a restaurant or something. But a lot of times we don't really. That's it. Once they retire, we're not going to hear about them anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I did want to talk a little bit about this bullshit ass game that's happening on Wednesday between the All Stars of Mexico versus the All Stars of the MLS. And as it turns out, everybody's dropping out. So, I mean, the big draw was the ability to see, for the first time in a long time, seeing Javier Hernandez and Carlos Vela playing together, but they have pulled out of the match. Gignac obviously still battling with his injury. Lalo Aguirre is actually in negotiations right now, working on a deal to get him to Europe, so he's not going. So, I mean, this whole thing is falling apart very quickly, and I feel really bad for anyone that bought a ticket to go see this sham.
I think if they wanted to see Chicharon Vela, yes, but I do feel there's still some attraction. I guess more for if you're an MLS fan. There's that attraction because they've always used games like these as sort of like the measuring stick. They want to see how they line up against Mex. So I'm a bit disappointed because I was looking forward to it, Jaime. Um,
Same.
I did want to see those two guys because we haven't seen them, and that was a bit also like almost like a slap in the face of Liga MX that they ended up in MLS and not in not in Mex,
You know what I
but
just
now it's
read?
sort of
Uh,
yeah.
Carlos Vela faked an injury to get out of the
I wouldn't be surprised if he did. He just he
game.
he doesn't like the Mexican media, man. He hates him.
He did the same thing last year during COVID. He opted not to play in that little Mickey Mouse tournament they had in Disneyland. he ended
Oh
up
yeah,
he
but
ended up not going to that either. So I mean, any opportunity he has to not play soccer, he's gonna take it. And
yeah, and well, I mean, his commitment is with the LAFC, not so much. This is more of a league thing, participation thing. But I do because I am pro cross tournament, you know,
you're into the
matchups,
cross
cross league.
pollination.
I want, dude, we need them, man. Chivas is like, that's like handing out the tray in church, the donation. You need money, dude. The more tournaments they could play, the better. The more money the team can get. The more clubs they could sell. Like, so if they could sell to MLS, if Chivas could sell their players to MLS and have money, and yes, I want that. Um, I know everybody wants Europe, but that's just, come on, man. It's not that realistic to think.
I think Alexis Vega has a realistic shot of going to Europe.
No, I mean, but to depend on that, like,
Oh,
do you know what I mean? So,
yeah.
like, if we look at I should be more specific or more clear. Even if you look at like River Plate and some of these other teams that constantly selling out talent, sell out their better players. They don't just go to Europe. They sell them all, to leagues. They'll sell them to Brazil, even MLS,
Right.
and and Europe. The whole thing with Europe. Yeah, the name. Oh, Europe, but a lot of clubs they're gonna offer you peanuts.
Yeah.
That's why we had that one player, dude. Again, forgetting the names, Jaime, but he ended up going to MLS. They pay like 15 million, and I
Celerayan
think
or
that
Pizarro or who?
nah, it was some dude from River Plate,
Oh, River Plate.
and and then some MLS club bought him for 15 million, and I think
Um,
no Euro club wanted to go over 10 or something, and I'm thinking, well, why? A lot of people are criticizing him, but I'm like, what if those extra five were his bonus signing? Of course, he was gonna take them because with that he could break his leg, the next day, and his family is set.
Santos
Uh,
Borre.
no, it wasn't that dude.
Oh, this is like 15 million. Julian Alvarez, Santiago Sosa. I don't know.
Yeah, and so I mean, but that's sort of like if Chivas could make that type of money
Uh,
selling players, they'll be, you know, you're not gonna get there because you sell. How much did he went on loan? He wasn't even sold.
who?
What's this guy? JJ Mag. That was like the
Getafe.
top player,
Yeah.
and he goes on a loan, and so yeah, you don't make much money like that. You need
Well, it's
you
more
need
of like a trial before you buy. You know, there's gonna be an option for Getafe to buy him at the end of the season, and then Chivas will keep a percentage of his future transfer. So, I think it was a good business there. You know, the problem is because it is a loan, Chivas can't eat, and we're dependent on uh you know our sloppy
But
seconds.
that's not the business model though. You know what I
It's
mean?
definitely
That
not.
you want,
You want to
where
be
it's
winning
like
titles, and you just give
you
up our
wanna,
best player. You know.
yeah, not alone. And then if they suck for 2 years, then they just send them back to you all like busted up, and then it's like, and now they're like stock dropped. So it's like, no, you want to sell. You just sell your better players for as much as you can, and then that way you could keep investing or buying other good players. So that's why I'm saying there's not going to be that many offers from Europe. So if you could have a league like MLS that's willing to pay that cash, then just go for it, sell it there.
Yeah. Well, I'll probably still tune in. The trick challenge is
The
tomorrow.
trick.
Yeah, they're gonna have like a skills test tomorrow, and then the official match will be on Wednesday. Both matches will be on in LA at the bank. And then while we're on the topic of all stars, the Chivas Leyendas will be playing in Napa this weekend. All the old heads from Chivas will be playing against local team Napa, And Napa just announced that Matias Almeida is going to be playing with them. How exciting!
Yeah, that just made it more attractive. I think a lot of people like, especially Chivas fans, they're high on Mati, so for him to be playing, even if it's against, it just gives it that extra. And any Chiva player looking forward to watching Jaime?
Um, I don't know what the roster looks like.
They haven't announced it.
Um, I would. One of my favorite players was actually Tilon Chavez. I don't know why. He just used to be one of my favorite players.
Yeah, I like Dilon.
Yeah, he was cool. I'm sure Reynoso will be there. I'm sure. ¿Cómo se llama el tiburón? Yeah, and El Pulpo. Yeah, there's a few players on that team that, I mean, it's gonna be reminiscent of my childhood because I grew up watching like the '90s Chivas, the one that won against Toros Nesa. So
Yeah, that was a good team. As long as they're in decent shape, you don't want to see them all like out of shape, all fat. It looks like a Sunday league. You know those.
yeah, I know what you mean, but I'm sure it can't be any worse than watching the Chivas, the actual Chivas team play right now. I'm sure it can't be worse than that. You know, and then there was another thing going around about uh possibly bringing in Tiburon Sanchez or Ramon Morales to coach Chivas because, se siente la camisa, se siente. But I'm like, dude, you can't just like call them up just because because of that. It's not good enough. It's not just saying, "Oh, échale huevos." Like you got to have like we're in 2021 now, I feel like there's so much data available now that I think there's more sophisticated manner of coaching than it used to
Yeah,
be.
and this is again. I'm gonna say it, Jaime. A lot of this stuff is from promoters and whatnot that they put out these like news things just to steer shit up and try to get fans all riled up, and it does work. But a lot of these guys they're linked to other people.
Mm.
They have contracts a lot of times, so it's not like the one guy that was there. Oh man, what was his name? He was there before Pelaez came in. God damn, what the hell was his name? He was a Chivas player, not very good, but they had brought him in, and he he had he had connections
Oh,
to some.
Varela?
Yes, he had connections to some agency that represented a bunch of players.
Oh, okay.
And so it's like, of course, if he's there, he's gonna try to get his people in. And so it's all, it's a lot of it is just business, and they'll talk about all this other stuff, but it's like, yeah, no, it's there's money to be made, and everybody wants to milk the cow. So I don't buy a lot of this shit about like, oh, siente la camisa or that, or when they say, you started seeing the whole Jimmy Lozano. I saw a tweet and says he doesn't have a contract. What are you waiting for, Chivas?
I agree.
And it's sort of like, those you're just stirring the pot there. I mean, Pelaez had just and this is after Pelaez, because he did his press conference. So it's like to still like for him to do that press conference and then have news articles like that coming out, it's sort of like we don't care what you said, dude.
I'm calling this right now. I think that Peláez will resign before we lose Vucetic. I think
Oh yeah, yeah,
he'll resign.
yeah. But I mean, I think he will if Amauri sort of like caves into like whatever pressure there is.
Mm-hmm.
So if Amauri caves in, because right now Pelaez has like he has total control of the club. And so the only one that could tell him, you know what, get rid of Buse, you know, is Amauri. And so if Amauri caves in and he starts telling them like, all right, you need to do this, you need to, then at that point Pelez will be like, well, then if you know, if you don't trust what I say, then there's no reason for me to be here.
Right.
So late. So yeah, who knows what would happen? Um, I know Vergara used to cave in a lot and follow a bunch of advice, bringing in people like Cascar Gorta and whatnot.
Oh God. And then sending the team to
Did a lot of
Colombia.
he did a lot of dumb dumb stuff like that, and it ended up hurting the team. So it's like I I would just let Pelaez finish. I don't know how long his contract is. He's been here long, but that's all been my thing with a lot of things. Just, dude, just let him finish. That he has a year to just let him finish it out,
Yeah.
and then start looking for whoever you think. Because Chivas is not just gonna need if they fire the coach or Pelaez leaves. You're not gonna
It's not gonna
fix all
fix
their problems.
anything.
Just
Yeah. It's not gonna fix anything.
well, I mean, this is the thing. Amari is not a soccer guy. He doesn't really know soccer. You're still gonna need someone that's gonna manage the team. You
Yeah.
know, have like a whole group there that that is gonna be in charge of players and every. So, like for example, when Vergara took over, you know, he wasn't into soccer. He didn't know anything, but there was a whole group that came in with him, and so you had Juan Jose Franchi, who was a he did a lot of the negotiations for transfers. They had Nestor de la Torre, who was like sporting director. They had like Ibar Cisniega, and then they brought in Hans. They already had Güero. God, no, I can't. I know I can't forget this name. Güero Real. They had Güero Real working the youth, but then they brought in Hans as well, sort of to like put in together a project, even though uh, Real had already had one in place. And then, but you had this whole group of people managing a different, you know, part of the club. And so if you do sack Pelaez, he's gonna have to bring in people like that again because he's not gonna do it himself.
You know, you really can't blame Amauri because on paper he did everything right. He brought in Pelaez, who was like a really good
Who?
VP. And then
Well, yeah, his track. Well, let's just add a little more. His track record has been good. People might
yeah,
not like it, but his like track record of bringing in players, he usually brings in good players. His team being consistent at a good level, all of that. Yeah, it's very good. You're not gonna find many that are better or even that are active because I think there's a few, but they haven't worked in a long time.
he also, and then Pelaez ends up hiring Vucetic, which I mean, let's be honest, that was a good move. You know, he had a good track record. And
Yeah,
the only thing is the refuerzos. You know, he hasn't been able to come through on that end. But apart from that, I mean, he tried to do everything right on paper, and it just it hasn't worked out. And that's what our listeners want to know is like what do you think is the problem with Chivas? And I'm not sure, man. I really can't point my finger at any one thing and say this is the issue.
well, I mean, it's a couple of issues. So one of them was they just had a lot of undiscipline. You know, we've talked about this many times. The whole indiscipline with the club, with the players. I mean, not too long ago they let go of 5 players, and that is hurting them. Not being able to count with some of these guys that they had to let go for. I think what was it, Jaime, a rape allegation or something
It
like
was
that?
like a sex scandal thing, yeah.
Yeah, but it was pretty, dude. It has to be heavy for them to just. It wasn't just like he grabbed their boob, you know, or
I
he,
think
he was
it
trying
was
to cup a
Villalpando.
feel.
It was Villalpando, and I think he raped like a underage, you know, girl or something.
Or without consent or something. But I mean, it was deep,
It was pretty bad. I
and
haven't
this was
even.
after they.
I don't think he's had a team.
Well, they're not touching. They're not. Yeah, see, that it just shows, and they had to get rid of all these dudes that kept like just messing up, and you do have a few that just discipline, and so I think that's one thing they've been working with, just getting rid of them, and at this point you just wait for the new crop and hope that they're more professional, and so that's one of them. The second one has been they just can't get players. It just costs too much money. The Chivas is not in a position to drop 50, 60 M every other year.
Yeah.
They just can't do that, especially if they can't sell players. That's the other one. The league isn't buying because they could get so many foreigners for cheap. So you're kind of asked out there if you're Chivas. So that also hurts them. I mean, and I'm gonna mention it again. The once the league went up in foreigners, it was what 80 foreigners, and then once they removed the restrictions, it was 160. So I mean, they replaced 80 Mexican players, and that's like 80 players less that Chivas can choose from.
Yeah,
That
but
it's
they've
like
always
now
relied
that
on, bringing their own, from the, cantera.
no, 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 Jaime, come on, that's a misconception. That's just not true. Chivas has look at some of these teams when how they, I guess because the '07 and that had a lot of canteranos, but they still had other players that they had brought in, like Bofo and whatnot. So I mean, it's always been like a healthy mix, but I wouldn't say, I know the goal was like 80% cantera, but I think if they could do 50, that would be pretty good.
I just remember there was a point in time when, Chivas weren't spending money at all, and they were just using, their cantera, and it kind of sucked, but at the same time, we were seeing a lot of players that we hadn't seen before. So, it's kind of like a hit and miss.
Yeah, I mean, and those three things I think are been huge. And when Pelaez, when he was talking about because he gave the press conference after the Leon defeat, and he did talk about how they're working on, and they have been working, and this project started before he came in with Leaño, where they've been working with youth, and they've sent a lot of youth to Spain to like third and fourth division teams, and then just been keeping track of. They brought back Tapatio, which is huge, was in my opinion, one of the best things they could have done. And but yeah, it could take anywhere 3-4 years to start seeing results.
Absolutely. Well, I do apologize. We talked a little bit too much about Chivas this weekend, but they're
That's
always in the headlines for one reason or another. Um, I'm very curious to see where Lalo Aguirre goes, or if that was also just an excuse not to participate in the MLS All Star game. But Lalo Aguirre, El Mudo Aguirre, he's playing at Santos. He didn't really get too many opportunities at the Olympics, but I've seen him play, man. He's a player that should be playing for Chivas, to be honest. But it looks like he's gonna just go leapfrog straight into Europe. So that would be very exciting because Macias was on the bench over the weekend. I don't think he saw any action. Um, I don't think he's gonna be seeing too much action, to be honest, at Getafe. But he wants to continue to pursue his dream of being in Europe, and he's willing to do that, I guess.
yeah. I mean, I don't know what the situation is with that team, but I think he has the mentality, to not cave in. This is a dude that would miss a penalty 2 weeks straight, and then he would still he would still shoot a third time. So I think I don't think it's. I think he's willing to stay on the fight and not at the first sign of trouble run back home.
Yeah, we know he's not motivated by money, so
He already has money.
he already has money. I do hope that he'll weight train because that's one thing that they don't do in Mexico is weight train. It's really annoying, actually. I mean, you look at Lainez, he looks super yoked now. Now that he's at Juve, or not at Juve, at Betis.
Yeah, it's just not. There's a few players, but for the most part, the teams don't really. It's something the teams don't emphasize.
Well, folks, that was episode 299 of Cantina MX Football Podcast. We'll go into our closing thoughts. And also, we wanted to let everybody know we want to do something special for our 300th episode next week. We don't have the exact date or time, but expect it to be around Monday or Tuesday. And we're going to invite everybody to hop on Twitter Spaces. I'm looking at you, Ricardo, because you were mad that you weren't able to participate last time we did it. So, Twitter Spaces, we're going to be broadcasting it as well as on YouTube.
Yeah, just at the Cantina account, and then as soon as it goes live, you'll get the notification. And then we do follow back. We're just slow at it, but we do we do follow back.
It's at Cantina MX _pod. You can find us there. And do you have any closing thoughts, Joel, before we sign out for the night?
Oh man, I did. I had like a good one, but then I sort of got lost with all this Chivo Hermano talk. it it went over me, man. Wasn't there selección stuff? I think they announced a game against Ecuador.
They did?
Yeah, I was already yawning. Yes, sir.
Oh, October 27th. Interesting.
It's still far. I don't know why they
Oh,
announced it. Then.
Charlotte. Okay. I know that Mexico
I thought it
has qualifications coming very, very quickly. September 2nd, they're going to kick off against Jamaica. It'll be a closed door event, no fans allowed. So, I mean, the qualifiers are coming up the corner, man.
Oh, that's right. It was because of the chant, right? So
That's
now
right.
It's like, if you can't hear it, you know, or maybe if you can't see it. How's that saying? Ojos que no ven, corazón que no siente. You have to adjust that with something about not hearing.
All right, everybody. Hope you have a great night. We'll catch you guys next week on our 300th episode. Be safe out there.